we are missing Deb.
As far as I know, she will be here.
Okay. Additions to the agenda, we've got one item on the consent agenda, which is just to be tagged on to the existing item.
Correct.
And then number 6 under business.
Business would be Ms. Wilkie. She is here to talk about the German, or possibility of the German trip in 14-15, if I'm not mistaken. So as we go through and hit business, I would move him on just so that he can present.
Okay. With those additions, I entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Cheryl, second by Bruce. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5, approve or correct the minutes from the September 10th regular meeting. Motion to accept the minutes. Okay, motion by Bruce to approve.
Second.
Second by Kella. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to the financial reports. We've got the August monthly balance sheet and the treasurer's report. Is there anything you'd like to point out on those?
No, I think most of it I've talked about in the past. Workman's comp is still there, and that shows up as a negative, and also capital has been broken up. So there's really we're not exceeding our budget anyway right now.
Okay, if there's no questions or issues, I would entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Lou.
Second.
Second by Mark. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to the bills, August and September 2013 bills.
I had opportunity this afternoon to go into the district office and review the additional August bills and September bills, and I did not see anything out of the norm for this time of the year, so I make a recommendation to approve the budget, or the bills as written.
Okay, we have a motion by Mark to approve. Second by Lou. Any further discussion?
I just have one quick question. What's retrofit recycling? It's $9,800. Does anybody have any idea?
That was the capital expenditure. They had done the lighting and the auditorium.
Gotcha.
Yeah, when we did the capital budget, the
It
lighting.
was probably the name that threw me off.
Yeah, it's the retrofit piece, that was the lighting, and when we put the LED lighting in there, again, that was a safety thing that we had okayed that because we had people changing those bulbs in many, what I'd say, precarious positions.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to the consent agenda, we've got lane changes as our only item under there.
And this would also include the additional one.
I'll make a recommendation to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, motion by Mark to approve,
Second.
second by Deb. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 1 under business, review and consider
If
approval.
we could maybe just move Ms. Wilkie up so that he does, not unless he cares to spend a lot of time here tonight.
Okay.
Otherwise,
first.
if we could move him first, that'd be great.
Sure. We've got Dave Wilkie here to present information concerning the 2014-15 German trip.
First, thanks for taking me on such short notice here.
Ms. Wilkie, if you could come down, we appreciate it.
Not a problem. Where do you want me?
Right in front of the mic.
My voice wasn't hearing it.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Well, like I said, thank you for seeing me. I was going through with the students this year in terms of things that they might want to do for the German trip, and we were thinking about possibly doing November of next year for the German trip, and the price quotes came back kind of high on that, so we did our kind of evaluation we went through about 7 price quotes today. The kids kind of looked at this trip, and this is the one that they kind of want to do. I've got, out of the survey that I've taken, I've got 6 that are definites and 15 that are maybes that would like to do this trip. So, and probably another 5 that are thinking about it as well. So, this is basically the same trip that we took last time, and I just ran it through the same dates that we went through last time. And so I don't think that there's going to be anything different in terms of that particular time frame. I know without the schedule, it kind of ties me a little bit because I'm restricted to, I think, 6 school days in terms of being able to take the trip, at least scheduled in the calendar. Last year, we went over because of a snow day, I think. But once in the planning stages, I think I've got 6 days. And I still have enough leeway that I can still make sure that that happens in the planning. But the one thing that came up in talking to the companies here, this particular company, they've got another $200 discount on it, which runs that trip down to $26.75 per student for a 13-day trip, which is actually cheaper than last year's trip. Or the one that we took last year was running an average, I think, of $2,800 there. The crux is that the sign-up would have to be by October 1st, and they'd have to have a down payment of $95. And I think Mr. Hewitt can attest that I tried to implore him to get a 2-year calendar done over the past to kind of help alleviate this, because normally the earlier that you're able to plan these things, the less expensive it gets. And just to give you an idea too, if we ran after March 25th on this trip, the trip already goes up $300 per kid with that because of the season in itself. So I looked into a couple different things. I looked at another company as well. So we actually priced 3 different companies with this. I'm still waiting on a personal quote through ISE that Daryl used to do with, Mr. Karstens used to do in the past, the former German instructor. And if that one runs, it will be probably the same thing. The only thing that would be different there is that I would manage more of the touring piece rather than having a tour guide do it. So we'd probably be able to do a lot more, get a little bit more bang for the buck. And so I took a survey on the students too in terms of if that ended up being higher in price, because with that one you do have to have more people sign up. If it ended up being higher in price, what is their point where they would say, now we're going to definitely move with one. And so they're looking at $200 to $300 more if it was there that they might want to do that one. But it would run basically within the same dates as this one. And basically we do a couple different things, but with that one, the personal one, I think the kids would like to try to do some skiing or something like that, so we can do those types of things with that personal agenda. But there again, I need numbers, and they kind of know that too. So some of them are kind of waiting to see what happens there. But the timeline is a little bit short. I'm looking for approval at least to get it running. I can definitely make sure that it stays within the parameters of what I'm confined to. I've asked EF to give me kind of an extension of 1 week as well in terms of that deadline. And sometimes they're able to do that, sometimes they're not. So I haven't heard back from them on that. I guess at this time I'll just take some questions from you if you've got questions about the trip.
What did you say the cost was per each?
Per each, if you look here on the price, it comes up to $2,375 per student. There is an extra $300 that the students have to estimate for, And that's for the stay behind, because we end up doing the touring part, and that's the price for the touring part. But then we do a homestay. And so within the cost of that $300 is the sub for the 6 days that I'm gone, because we have to cover that cost. The transportation from the last city that we're visiting to our homestay city of Ulm. We did that by train last year. And then transportation back from Ulm to Frankfurt or wherever our departing airport is. And then a one-night hotel stay the night before. And last year we planned that out, and it's a good thing that we did, because we missed the train the first time. We had to rebook tickets, which was not fun. But literally we had a little issue with that, and I'm still at odds with the German rail system on that, because the train literally stopped for like less than a minute, and it was off. And so we got 8 of us that were waiting on that. We had to pick a roundabout, so it's, the planning with that, you have to kind of plan, and those things happen, and you kind of need to run with that. And luckily, I'm pretty comfortable with going back to my birth country and taking care of that type of thing.
This quote, I guess this quote here is for this particular trip. You talked about 2
Correct.
different.
There's another trip out there, ISE, that I'm waiting on the quote to come back for. Basically, ISE would be pretty much the identical trip in some regards. We'd probably stay a little bit longer in Salzburg. So the difference between the two is, with ISE, I would choose to spend extra time in Salzburg, Austria. We would probably go to Nuremberg within that one too. So there'd be a couple variations from this one. And if it's roughly the same cost, we kind of run that in there a little bit. So it's fairly close to the same trip. There's a lot more benefit to the students in terms of that they're able to do a few more things outside of what's normally scheduled in this trip. Okay, so
But the price would be about the same.
the price, well, it depends on, with ISE, they base it on numbers. So the more that our numbers are, this is kind of how Mr. Carson's on his trips too, the larger your numbers, the less expensive it gets. And so they tier it by groups of 20 students, and each level that you hit, it drops about $400 to $600 per kid. So my kids are kind of aware of that too, so.
You're looking for your deposit next October, right?
No, it's this October.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
For 2015?
Yeah, for 2015.
Oh, wow.
So they're looking for registration in order to book the price where it's at, because October 1st, the prices are supposed to go up.
Okay, so if you get deposits and then kids decide to go later, they can still get on the trip somehow?
Correct, yes. That may not be at the same price, although I know EF is working at, in the past, we had, I think the last German trip that we took, the price went up like 5 or 6 times. And we had 2 or 3 join later, so which becomes a problem. And I've put in recommendations, because a long time ago, EF used to say, okay, if you got the book priced, once you get your price booked, once you get enough registrations, that price will stay the same. And I'm not sure if they're going back to that or not yet, but the kids are looking at the price issue too, and if they're, with the ones that are definitely wanting to go, they would like to get at least, get it in at that price, and the other ones know that they need to make that switch, so hopefully we can make that all work. And that's kind of, the earlier that you do things with this company, generally the better price discounts that you get. So, I mean, we're well over a year out right now, so that's why I don't have problems with being able to move dates and stuff. I mean, that type of stuff can change, because they don't really work on getting the tickets until you're about 100 and some days out.
So you need approval from us just for you to go ahead and...
To be able to run it, it's going to be either this trip or one that's going to be very similar to it. What I'm hoping for is at least the approval so that we can get them going once that bid comes in. I don't know what the ISE timeline is, but EF Tours is definitely within next week.
Dave, how many kids would you have to have for it?
I need a minimum of 6.
You need a minimum of 6.
And I've already got 6 that have definitely said, yeah, we're going, we want to go no matter what.
Okay.
And I wouldn't put in the registrations until I had at least 6.
Right, okay.
So I would make sure that we're at least at that point.
I think that's great. Always a great
Okay.
opportunity for our kids to go through those trips. It's really a well-educated venture for them. So I would make a recommendation to support this
Okay.
trip.
All right, we have a motion by Mark, and a second by Kella. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, thanks, David. Thank you. All right, we'll go back to number 1 on the business, which is to review and consider approval of the proposed 2013 payable 2014 levy limit certification report.
Any questions on the part of the board? This is the voter-approved referendum. There's some equity dollars in there. It also has our debt service also included in there. Our deferred maintenance, all of that is in these levies.
Bob, what has gone on, or gone down from the initial?
Well, part of what's caused it is the judgment is now gone.
Oh, okay.
And there's also with the law changing with that $300, they're supporting the first $300 of levy that Eller's talked about at the last time. So they're paying more of the levy. Our dollars are, in essence, aren't going down. The state is paying more.
Because it's substantial.
It's $255,000. Does that include the bond refinance that we were saying?
No, I don't think
That would
that'd be a part of
additional
this,
savings,
yeah. Correct.
Okay, we have a motion by Bruce to approve,
Second.
and a second by Deb. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, review and consider approval of assurance of compliance with state and federal law prohibiting discrimination.
This is a yearly requirement.
Motion by Bruce.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Bruce and a second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 3, review and discuss policy 516, which is the Paynesville School District 741 medication administration policy.
The policy committee did meet and have a good discussion about this particular piece. I have put an additional sheet on where you're at. That would replace the piece, I think, in page 3, and it'd be number, in the middle of number 5. Part of the concern that the policy committee had is that the way it was phrased in the policy talked about the fact that the school nurse or other appropriate party must assess the student's knowledge and skills to safely possess and use an asthma inhaler in a school setting and enter into the student's school's health record a plan to implement safe possession. When we had the discussion about that, we felt that the concern was the liability factor, that you're saying that the school nurse is going to train the people, and the change that she had put in is the parent must submit written authorization for the student to self-administer the medication each school year. Student's parent or guardian must submit written verification from the prescribing professional, which documents students can safely self-carry and use the asthma inhaler in the school setting. So we felt that when talking with the school nurse, that would take the liability piece off our employee and put it into the professional where they're getting the inhaler from. The other big change to this is that in the past, you've had a number of addendums on there that are really procedures in the old policy. Those are really procedures. They're not, they should not be considered as part of the policy. They're procedures. And the big difference is that if we change this policy, we need to come back to the board for approval to change the policy and revise it. Procedures can be changed by us. If we find out that one of the procedure isn't working as effectively as we think, we can change the procedure without coming back to the board. That doesn't mean that there won't be a evaluation of that, but it would be more of an evaluation of the school nurse and probably myself to say that these procedures aren't working well. We need to change it slightly to make it work more effectively for the school. So we will take those addendums out of the old policy. They'll no longer be part of the policy. Only really what I consider the policy itself will be approved by the board. And this will be a revision of the policy. So unless the board wants to go through piece by piece on this, I know I had sent it out to the board, so I'm not sure how much you want to go over. There's a couple other pieces that the policy committee talked about, whether it needs to be a licensed piece. There was some changes as far as the way it was put together, and have talked with the nurse who will change it, that it would all be licensed school nurses, so we'll bring consistency into it. And this would be the first reading of the policy, so you don't have to make any action on it at this time. And particularly being the fact that we've already changed the piece that we sent you, I'd say we should go to a second read, send the new policy out with those changes in there before the board goes to approval.
Okay, is there any questions on that now?
And if you have any questions when you look at the policy, please send them to me and I'll respond back, or we can have the discussion at the next board meeting when we come up. I will ask probably the board to approve the policy so that we can make the changes in what we're doing.
Okay, so we'll bring that back next time.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to skip number 4 and move to 5, which is to discuss and consider decision regarding naming of facilities.
Well, again, the policy committee had a lot of good discussion on this, and I guess I would ask the policy committee themselves to speak up a little bit on this particular one. The discussion really was about whether the board wants to develop a policy for naming parts of our facility or whole buildings of our facility. I certainly, from my perspective, brought up to the board that it becomes a slippery slope. There are going to be a lot of deserving people who could have a piece or a building named in our, on our behalf, on their behalf, and I think we need to be very careful with that. So I think to have some discussion here with the board on whether we want to go down that path. We can certainly develop a policy if we're going to allow it, but if we're not going to allow it, then I would say we don't necessarily need to develop a policy for it. Our stance would simply be that we don't name facilities after any individuals. So I'd open it up for board discussion. I certainly do think, and part of the discussion that we have is that there are numerous ways to honor people. We're not saying we shouldn't do that. And again, the board needs to decide. But I think when the policy committee talked about this, I think at least our initial feeling was that we didn't want to go down the road of naming facilities after individuals, but rather honor. And please, policy committee.
In some of our discussion, we talked about a plaque, but maybe not just a plaque that has somebody's name on it. It was our discussion on the board. It wasn't my idea. I thought it was a great idea. But put a plaque on there, but describing what that individual did, so that when we're 30 years down the road and somebody sees somebody's name plaque on, say, a building or whatever it be, where we decide, somebody can read why they're on there, instead of having a name, and as time evolves, eventually everybody forgets who it may be. I thought that was a great suggestion that came from the policy committee, but there were 3 of us, so.
It does make a lot more sense to me than naming a building, because how many times have you been in the cities or somewhere and you walk by a building and it's got a name on it and nobody knows what it means? I mean,
Well,
in years to come,
yeah,
but
and
the
you
part
still-
of the plaque with a description of, or more of a memorial toward that person.
Another issue we had was, do we name it after one person when there was someone else before them that did just as much? Or someone that comes along later that do just as much? Do we change the name later? This is another
Do we have any
issue.
buildings named right now?
We do not.
There's no fields or anything that's named after anybody in this district.
I don't believe we have anything named
What
after
about
any
the track?
one
Is that
individual.
official name, the
What?
track?
Unless the board has acted on it,
I don't recall if they were or not, but,
well, you would probably have a better idea whether that ever took place.
well, the Holder Swenson Memorial
Yeah.
track was supposed to be there.
If the board didn't act on it,
But I don't recall that.
I can only tell you that nobody's referred to any of the buildings to me that this is what they're named and this is the reason why they were named that.
personally, when the plaque thing came up, I just thought that was a great idea. Just so people know what somebody did. I think that's a super thing. Let's talk about the Holger Swenson threat. Well, how many people remember Holger Swenson? I think, well, a fair amount of you might not even know who he was. I remember him, but it's sad that it got gray hair, but it's eventually somebody, we won't have any idea what that's about. Well, the thought was a plaque that just wasn't somebody's name, and that it had something about it, so everybody would know.
Yeah, and I think that you don't want to tie yourself into one particular piece. I mean, I have seen trees planted, I have seen benches put up, I have seen a number of different things to honor individuals for various reasons. I think the board can still have control over that on, if somebody has a proposal, they could come to the board and say, we would like to do this. The board can certainly ask for, let's see what it looks like, where is it going to go, what's it going to be, what's it going to say, those types of things, so that you have control over what is done to honor individuals. Not necessarily, no. I think you just need to make a decision. You can certainly put a policy in place, but.
Do you know if there's a model policy? Probably not.
Not what I would consider a good naming. I did call MSB at one time and ask them about this when it first came up with the Adult Learning Center, and they don't really have a policy. I did a lot of research on the internet. There are various policies that put procedures in place for naming things. I think if the board stance is going to be, you're just not going to do that at this time, then I don't think you need a policy for that. You know, I think the board can just say we're willing to approve of things that honor individuals.
Well, you know,
We'll
we had
probably have a policy
the
for it.
softball field, well, at least the fence, and that was primary, what it was supposed to be for, was named after Joe Spalding's daughter, because he donated the funds for the fencing, and the plaque was put up there for a number of years, and I don't know, I think it may be brought inside, I'm not real sure. Now, that didn't require board approval, it was just done. And I don't know.
I would say that the board, at least in my opinion, would want some control over what happens. You want to make sure that whatever is done very appropriately and not only adds to the memory of the individual, or if they're not passed away, but also adds to our facilities. You know, an example is the auditorium. And certainly we're going to have a request to honor an individual that has done an immense amount of work there. We're going to want that to look also very good and to fit into the auditorium and do what we want it to do. So I think to just say you're going to allow anything to happen because somebody wants to do it, I think would not be the path that I would suggest the board goes down.
And then it also gives a meaning to why the plaques are being put wherever they're being put, because then it is recognized by the board. It's a board action. It's
It's from the school, not
Yeah.
just a group of individuals.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not going to be something that's going to be, oh, I thought somebody had this here named after them. Well, this way, if we do it properly, I think we can recognize individuals that do outstanding work in a particular area, and rightly so, be able to documentate what they have done, so future generations can go back and say, you know what, this probably wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for this person, and then maybe later on this person, and maybe later on that person, whatever it might be, but I guess that would be my take on that too.
Well, it seems to me that'd be really hard to write appropriate policy, just because so many different things come up. And if you have, we're willing to consider requests, and you just do it on a case-by-case basis. I don't think you can write a policy that says, if you accomplish this and this, then you can get a plaque or a building or something like that.
I certainly think it's right for the board to say that, we are not going to go down that path, that, at least at this time, the board or a new board in the future may change their mind on that. But at least for now, if that's the desire of the board, you would just simply say our stance is that we're not going to name facilities or parts of facilities after anybody, but we are more than willing to listen to anything that somebody has that wants to come forward and say this is what we would like to do.
A memorial.
Yeah. Well, or if you have somebody that's done an extremely good job and hasn't passed away, in some way that to honor people. You know, Eden Valley has chosen, you know, they named buildings after a couple individuals who are still here. So I wouldn't want to say it has to be a memorial, but certainly that would be a piece that could play into it. But it does give you control of that. And I think to honor whoever it is by coming forward and approving that, I think is a good thing.
I can just sort of see somebody coming forward wanting to name the ball field. You know, I can just, it's,
There are very valid reasons on why people want to honor by doing that. You know, there are valid reasons, and my concern would be that there will be a lot of individuals that will have done a tremendous amount for the school district.
Now, what you're saying is, if someone, like it has been in the past, climbing the tree, you can put a little plaque underneath naming after that individual.
They'd have to come
They'd have
to
to
the
come
board.
to the board for, okay.
At least that would be my suggestion. I do believe the board has to have some control over what is happening in the district. Otherwise, you could have a lot of things all over the place.
One of the buildings that we were talking about naming after somebody, what if they sold it? Nobody would do. Or what if that facility moves into the reserve center? I mean, there's a lot of things coming down the
buildings
pipe.
that have been
So
named
that's
by
when that
people
plaque
in the
came up.
past, they can get changed. I mean, if you look at St. Benedict's
Mhm.
College, they renamed their auditorium after that gentleman got
Oh.
into trouble. Generally, people name buildings after benefactors.
Mhm.
And you could certainly put some procedures in place that says if somebody comes forward, these are the type of things the board will look at and consider. You know, so you could certainly have a procedure kind of put in place on what people would do if they want to honor someone.
I think the biggest thing with policies is the people that have spoken to me want to go online and read what the policy is. And that's the main reason for putting a policy out, is so everybody can look at it. Maybe we need a simple policy, just a simple one that says that we do not at this time name no consent for individuals.
That's the desire, that, you know, that's up to the board on whether you want to do that or not. And certainly you don't have to make a decision. I know that this is the first time we've talked about it. So it's up to the board on where they want to go. I would say that if you do that, then there would be some procedures on what to do if they're not naming and what they might do if they're going to honor somebody, the things that the board would look at if they're going to consider the request.
Do we want to,
I think it's up to the board on where they want to go from this. If you want to have a policy put together, I don't think you have to have a motion to do it. I guess the directive to me saying, put a simple policy together. If, at least from what I'm hearing here, is that at this time, the board is not in favor of naming facilities after individuals. So that's kind of what the policy would say if we put that in place.
I think it'd be a good idea to have some sort of, like Cheryl said, some sort of simple procedure. Just kind of summarizing what we've talked about here.
You want it to be a policy, though. There's a difference between the policies and the procedures.
Yeah, policy would be put in place that couldn't be changed unless the board decided
The
on
board
it.
would have to act on it.
A procedure could be changed without board approval.
Correct.
So wouldn't the policy just be a simple statement of we will not be naming buildings in District 741 after people?
Correct. There'd probably be a very short policy, and I mean, very short policy, and then there, below it, you might have, or attached to it, you might have the procedures that are going to be followed for
See,
dishonoring someone.
that's what, I don't think that we need.
No, I don't think we need a
Because if
policy.
you're going to start listing things that we don't do and then the other things that you can do instead of, I mean, that just opens up.
Pretty soon we'll visit it again and say, well, we that's what I'm saying, just leave it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Typically, when they do that, they do contact the superintendent or a board member if they want to have an honor. I mean, so
Yeah.
most people will have come in for at least the two situations that we've talked about and said, we would like to do something on this, where do we go from here?
Okay, so I'm getting conflicting here. I don't know if we need to vote on whether we need a policy or not. We certainly can.
Well, I think,
I think I would suggest that, you know what, let's just have a simple policy for right now that we do not name buildings,
Period.
period.
You don't need
And then nothing else besides that, and if somewhere along the line, somebody wants to change that policy to name something, then that's up to that board, whoever's gonna be sitting here. If there's a group of people that wanna come in and just do a memorial type of thing, they would, I mean, it's the discretion of the superintendent, say, okay, we talked about that at the board level, and we didn't come to a conclusion, but, come with a proposal of what is it that you envision, and then we can say, you know what, that might look good for that area, and let's do it if it's not gonna cause too much angst.
Yeah, I think it is very good to be able to do that for people that have contributed a lot to the district. If, it sounds like, at least at this point, I'll develop a short policy, they'll do that, I'll probably add a little bit to it as far as if they want to honor something, where they go and what they do, but I'll put that together and I'll bring it back to the board.
Okay.
All right, we're going to move on to informational reports. Lou, West Central Ed.
Well, we had a very short meeting, which was last week ago yesterday. Very short. You know that. And there really wasn't a whole lot to discuss. We went over financial reports, there was no outstanding bills, and they cut it really short. They talked about the personnel. That hasn't changed. There's the same amount of people on staff. They did add one person. I believe he speaks 2 languages. That's at the ACL. What was it, Portuguese and Spanish, I believe. Yeah. And that's about all. It just went, I think it was about a half hour and everything was, it's relatively early in the season, so Doug didn't have anything as far as expenses or anything else to talk about. And policies haven't changed. I think there's 28 students at LC and 8 at the Beacon. And we added one more this week, I know. So it should be 9 at the Beacon. That was about it. The next meeting will be November 18th.
All right, thanks, Lou. C meeting, Deb.
I was not able to make it to the C meeting, but Mr. Hewitt did and brought back the paper recording. I was able to read up on it online. It sounded like, well, I didn't tell you about it, but it sounded like they missed a pretty good discussion with the Commissioner of Education, was there?
Yeah, Commissioner of Education was there, did talk quite a bit, answered a number of questions by the audience. Also, there was an individual who had talked about the Minnesota Miracle, not the hockey one, but the one where they really did come forward and do quite a bit for financing education in the state. So they gave some past history of that, which was interesting in all the factors that had to come together in order for that really to work the way that it did work. And that those factors aren't always easy to get together to have it work that way. So it was a pretty good meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Staff development, Deb also.
That we didn't. That one I didn't. And most of the discussion was around funding.
It was.
And I don't know how much I'm,
Well, I think we did talk a little bit that we're going to try to tighten our budget up just because of really our enrollment counts at this time. We're still down students. In my point, we're staying about where we're at, but kind of been going up and down a little bit around that point. So we are certainly going to do what we need to do, but we're also going to try to conserve as many dollars as we can for staff development.
we also had a great deal of discussion on things that they wanted for, and how they were gonna handle it. They're in the process of tightening up the budget for the belt, doing more in-house kind of things. Staff, teaching staff kind of deals. And they put out a survey for the staff as to what they needed or what they thought would be of benefit. And there's quite a bit of discussion on something like leadership groups within the school. the individual schools, elementary school and the, which I found very interesting, leadership groups trying to get everybody to work, and it sounded like it was working, getting the staff to be more collaborative in the things that they did. And they discussed nominations for the Leah.
The awards, yeah.
And, no, but to see all the work that Colin had done on the, he puts everything on the web for us, so that was impressive. You can go on and read everything that's been done and what they have planned for the year to come. And they were looking for new people also for the high school, I think. Whoever's not there usually gets nominated, but they weren't going to do that this year. They were going to try and talk someone into volunteering. So. And I guess that was about it.
Okay, thanks, Deb. Admin report, Bob.
Just two things, I'll also include negotiations. We continue with negotiations. We're starting to meet with more groups. I think we've made some headways. It is my hope that I'll be bringing something back to our negotiating team for the bus contract, and I'd really like to bring that forward at the next meeting. I think we still have discussion to do with in our other groups. I do, before to be aware, there's some nominations for the delegate position that I would like each board member just to fill out and give to me, and I will send in. So I'll do that right at the end of this meeting. Also, Lori and I kind of put in for what's called Connecting for Middle Level School Success Initiative. It's a state-run program that we believe will be very beneficial. It's called Leadership. Just kind of give you an idea, it says the goal is to increase the achievement of Minnesota middle level students. Participant schools will gather, analyze, and utilize multiple sources of data, develop strong, effective, change-oriented leadership, and implement results-based programs and strategies. MDU will provide assistance to a select number of principals, and I've learned that Lori has been accepted into this, as they learn and implement strategies related to the following 6 research-based core components, which we've built in a Minnesota model framework. The core components are rigorous and relevant curriculum for all students, a personalized learning environment for each student, highly effective teachers and instruction, effective leadership, a safe and healthy school environment, and data used for improvements in a timely and ongoing manner. So I know that we have a meeting sometime in October here for this, but I think I'm excited. I think that's a great thing for us. I think we also met with technology, and I know that we met with the administration today and also Jim Decker to talk about technology and where we need to go. Our servers are starting to get very old, so we'll be approaching the staff about such things as Google Mail, Google Docs, those types of things. I'll be putting the technology committee together. I'd like to do that even next Thursday. So if you remember, you're going to get an email from me tomorrow just saying I'd like to set up a meeting as quick as we can to talk about the things that administrators talk about. At the same time, I know the administrators will be talking to their staffs about kind of the things that we think we need to do in order to really save some dollars and also be more effective, I think, with the use of technology. I think that's what I got.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else to come before the board this evening?
Just one real quick one. I think we still need to address, and we need to start looking at it, and we talked about planning. The drop-in students is a serious issue, and everybody realizes it, so we're looking at a lot of things. We somehow need to steer away from that. Just a suggestion, I think we all need to think about it and figure out how we take a positive approach to try and turn that around. Could be difficult, but if we don't think about it and we don't talk about it, we're going to do nothing, and then we're just going to watch the school population get worse. And we're not adding anything if it gets worse. So.
Okay, is there anything else? Now we're going to move to closed session under Minnesota Statute 1380.05, subdivision 2, B, to review the superintendent's evaluation.